Hi guys, so in this video we'll be discussing income elasticity of demand. So let's go with the definition first. So by definition, income elasticity of demand is an economic measure of how responsive the quantity demanded or the quantity demand for a good or service is to a change in income. Right? This might not make sense right now, but when we look at the formula next, that will make much more sense. So let's have a look at the formula now. So the definition says income elasticity of demand is an economic measure of how responsive the quantity demand for a good or service. Quantity demanded is basically this, QD. How responsive it is to a change in income, and income is the denominator. So basically by how much, because this delta or triangle represents change, so by how much does QD change for a change, for a given change in income, right? So by how much percent does QD change by a given percent change in income. So that's the formula we are looking at right now. And to calculate the percentage change, we can just use the formula new minus old divided by old into 100. So let's say if you want to calculate the percentage change in QD, then new QD minus old QD divided by old QD into 100, and new income minus old income divided by old income into 100, and then we plug in the given values over here. Let's say if the income goes from 100 to 110, then we can use the formula given over here. And let's say QD goes from 10 to 20, again we can use this formula to calculate the percentage change, and then just plug in the values into this formula and measure how responsive the quantity demand for a good or service is to a change in income. And then the third part is understanding what the values really mean. So let's say if the value of YD is between 0 and 1 or is greater than 0. So in both of these cases, we are looking at normal goods. So what are normal goods? Normal goods are basically goods for which your demand increases as your income goes up. So let's say if you're talking about maybe a car, maybe a watch, right? So as your income goes up, your demand for such goods goes up as well, since they are normal goods. It's not like when your income goes up, you start buying less of these things. You start buying less of, let's say, branded clothes. It doesn't work like that in normal cases. And so these are normal goods, right? So the value of ID is between 0 and 1, which means that when QD goes up, let's say if the income goes up by 10%, then the QD will go up by value less than 10%. So QD will go up by value less than 10%, and just for the sake of assigning a value, I'm going to assign 5. So it goes up by 5%, which shows us that QD increases by less percent when compared to the change in income, right? And this signifies that such a good is a necessity. Because let's say if you're buying wheat, right, and your income goes up, right? You're a consumer of wheat and your income goes up. It's not like you will start consuming a lot more wheat. Initially, let's say if you were consuming less wheat, now maybe you can buy more wheat and you can eat more, but it's not like it will substantially increase the amount that you are buying. Which is why the income elasticity is inelastic. It's between 0 and positive 1. Um, and then the next one is a value greater than 1. Sorry, I'm just going to change this part here. So when the value is greater than 1, it's basically classified as income elastic. So the demand is income elastic as compared to being income inelastic in the first case. And so let's say the income goes up by 10%, income is going up by 10%, then the change in QD will be a value greater than 10%. And just for the sake of assigning values, I'm going to assign elastic the good, right? It will be classified as income elastic. And these are usually luxury goods. So let's say if my income goes up right now, then my demand for branded watches, branded clothes, or anything along those lines will increase by a lot, or maybe even a good car if I had a bike, maybe even a good car. So since my income is going up, my demand or QD for such things will go up by a lot as compared to something like wheat, which is a basic necessity. In both the cases, we saw that the demand or QD increased, right? when the income went up, there was a positive relationship between income and QD, and so the QD went up as well. But that is not true in all cases. Let's look at the third one. So over here, the value of YD is less than 0, which means it's negative, right? It has a negative sign to it. And in this case, let's say when the income goes up by 10%, so income goes up by 10%, the QD will fall, right? It can fall by 5%, 10%, whatever. We don't care about elastic or inelastic here, and so it just falls. That's the main point which we're trying to make, that it will fall instead of increasing like in the previous cases. It will fall. There's a round arrow here, and this happens in the case of inferior goods. And inferior goods are subjective. So let's say if there's a really poor person and he is currently using public transport, and so as his income goes up, now he will demand less of public transport. So let's say if this is for public transport, then since his income is going up by 10%, he will demand less and less of public transport, which is not the best option available, right? So that's like one case where this can happen when your income does go up, but your demand for a certain good goes down, since it's classified as an inferior good. And since inferior goods are subjective, so let's say if there's a really rich person and he was consuming maybe chicken, right? And according to his belief, meat is a superior option to chicken. And so as his income goes up, he will start consuming less of chicken and start consuming more of meat. And so if this was for chicken, it would remain true as well, that since his income is going up, the QD of chicken is going down for that guy. But we can't say that chicken was also an inferior good for a poor person, because maybe the poor person was previously just consuming lentils or vegetables, right? And so we can't really say that it is inferior for the person. All these things are subjective, and so these are just examples to explain the concept. So that's pretty much it from this video.